I'm Sarah, and as Rich mentioned, I'm from Teal Software. I am Teal Software, it's just me. And today I'm going to talk to you about Dataverse. It's not going to be one of the fancy things where I'm going to talk about all the AI and the latest features that you can do. I'm going back to basics and telling you showing you what you can do with Dataverse out of the box without creating anything. Okay? Actually, I'm going to create one thing. I'm going to create one custom object. That's going to be a model-driven app. So an alternative title to this presentation could have been an ode to model-driven apps. Okay, this is the agenda for the next 45 minutes or so. This was going to be the agenda, but when I've been practicing this presentation over the last couple of days, I discovered that actually creating the new environment, configuring the environment, and then creating a model-driven app was taking me too long. So what I've done is I've already created that environment, and I'm going to explain what settings I used. And I'm going to tell you what configuration I've done. So I've already created the environment. Also, behind the scenes, I've created a SharePoint site. And the user that's going to be, and the user that I'm going to be when I'm interacting with a model-driven app is a member of that SharePoint site. So, and then I'm going to create a model-driven app. And the model-driven app is going to be like the portal to all of these beautiful Dataverse features that we're going to get. And I'm probably going to have to speak quite quickly because there was a really long list of things I wanted to cover. But actually, when I was practicing it, I only managed to get it down to show you a few. We also have questions at the end in case there's anything that you think, oh, can't we do ABC? And we'll be able to talk about that. Okay. Also, as I mentioned, we're playing Dataverse Bingo, and there's going to be spot prizes. So we'll see how the bingo goes and how successful that is, and then perhaps there'll be some prizes for some other things. I have a variety of things to hand out. At the end, if there's time, I'm going to tell you a bit more about me, because really what I want to focus on is the Dataverse stuff, and then I'll tell you a bit more about me if there's time at the end. Right. Okay, so first up, what I did, I have created a new environment. For those of you who are familiar with creating environment, I created it with a Dataverse store. Okay, so I turned the toggle on. Security group, I set it to none, but best practice. It's really great if you can secure your Dataverse environments with a security group. Importantly, I have toggled off, I kept off without Dynamics 365 apps, okay? So I'm not talking about Dynamics 365, I'm talking about Dataverse. I haven't enabled any Dynamics 365 features. What I did there. And then I configured the environment, and these are the things that I did. I have enabled server-based SharePoint integration. I'm going to show you what that means for the user during once we're playing with the model-driven app. I then added the SharePoint site in my document management settings, and I've configured it to link to the account entity, the account table, and that's going to mean a lot more a bit later on. I have turned on email tracking. I have approved, tested, and enabled the email of the user that I'm going to use. What that actually means is that I'm going to be able to send emails from within Dataverse using that email account of the user that I've configured. I have enabled Dataverse search. I have turned off AI form filling, and I recommend everyone in this room, if you're ever in a Dataverse environment, turn off AI form filling. It confuses the users. I've enabled Bing Maps on forms. I have turned on auditing. I don't care how long the audits are kept because I'm going to delete the environment after today. So that's how I've configured the environment. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the Maker portal. I'm going to create a model-driven app. It's going to look a bit like this. This model-driven app, as I mentioned earlier, it's sort of like a portal into Dataverse. It's how the users are actually going to interact with our data that's in Dataverse and all of the features and functions that we get with Dataverse. I'm going to add a few of the out-of-the-box tables. Okay, so with Dataverse, when we create a new environment, a new Dataverse environment, and we have the toggle enable Dataverse data store, and when we're creating the environment, we get an empty database with some tables already in it. And when I say empty, it takes up one whole gigabyte of storage. An empty database is 1 gig of storage. In that, we have a bunch of useful tables for us, the users. And I'm going to add a couple of those to my model-driven app. And I better jump in and do it. So I just needed to switch my display settings so that I'm duplicating instead of extending. That will make it easier for me. Here. And okay, here I am in the Maker portal. I'm in my environment. Can you see this? You can. Let that go away. Okay. So I'm in my environment that I created. I'm going to create a model-driven app, and I simply cannot help myself. I must do it inside a solution. And the reason I put things inside a solution, notwithstanding the fact that we can pick up that solution and put it into another environment, for me, it makes things so much less cluttered. For me, this is like, you know, you've got a drawer at home, the junk drawer in the kitchen or the laundry or wherever, and it is full of stuff. And you're hunting through it and you're trying to find things. Wouldn't it be nicer if you, in your junk drawer, you had a divider? Check your bingo. You had a divider. And you organise things in your junk drawer into nice little compartments. Okay? That's what a solution is. It organises your environment. It also has the added benefit of letting you pick that up and move it to other environments. I can't help myself. I have to do a publisher because I'm not going to have the default publisher. And I am running off a mobile hotspot, so it might not be as fast. And hopefully we'll be right. Right, so it's thinking about the solution. Now I'm going from the top, I'm doing new app, and I'm creating a model-driven app. Make lots of spelling mistakes probably. Lower because it's on them. Okay, now, as I mentioned, I'm going to add some of those handy out-of-the-box tables. Account. Now they're adding the account, contact, the email, email signature, email template. That'll do for now. So I've just added some tables to my model-driven app, and that's going to give me a way to actually access the data in Dataverse. And I'm going to now I'm going to publish it. Okay, another thing I'm going to do while that's waiting is in my environment, I'm going to turn, so for my environment, I have turned on auditing. And now for one of my tables that we get out of the box, I am going to configure, I'm going to turn on auditing for that table. Just so that I can show you what it can do out of the box. Okay, so that's done and I've published that. Now I'm going to share this app with the user. So I'm logged in as a global admin here doing all of this stuff, but my user is going to need access to the app. So I'm going to share it with them. And I'm also going to say, I'm configuring some security roles here. Out of the box, we get a number of security roles. I'm not going to talk too much about the security roles because that's a whole session, a whole day in itself. But I'm just using some of the out-of-the-box ones. And I'm sharing it with General Manager. The reason General Manager is already there is because I added them as a user in my environment. And I added them as a user in my environment before sharing them the app, simply so that I could enable their Outlook, their email. Okay, I'm going to play this and then I'm going to get this. Nope, that's wrong. Okay. Simply I can get this. Now I'm going to I've switched browser sessions and now I'm logged in as a user. Right, I'm just going to quickly flip back to one where this one. Okay, right. Okay, what can we do? This is it, people. Now for the good stuff. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to show you what we can do. And I will keep flicking back to this to make sure that I've covered off what we're going to talk about. General Manager, yes. Okay, so okay. First up, out of the box tables, I've added them to the added them to my model-driven app. I'm going to jump into the contact record. The contact table lets us store information about people. So this is things like first name, last name, email address. We get lots of fields out of the box for the contact table. I'm going to create a new, sorry, I'm jumping back, but at the top here, this is the ribbon. And every time we look at a different table within our model-driven app, we more or less have the same options up here. I'm going to run through, and the options that you have will depend on your security role and what you're able to do with those types of records. Okay, so I gave myself a system administrator, so I can do everything. So that means I can create a new one, I can delete, I can edit. However, when we're working on a Dataverse implementation, we would most likely create some custom security roles and define which of the CRUD actions people can do. So we have these up here. I'm going to come back to those. Right, I'm creating a new record. I'm going to create myself. I've practiced a few times. I'm going to also create an account. So an account is another one of the out-of-the-box tables, and it represents a business entity, or if we're a business, an account is usually someone that you're going to send an invoice to, someone you receive an invoice from, perhaps someone you interact with because you want them to buy something from you, they're not yet a customer, etc. Okay, usually it's a legal entity. I'm going to create an account, and that account is Teal Software. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying that Sarah Bennett works for Teal Software. And I'm entering an email address. I'm going to just put in, I live in Geraldine, aren't I lucky? Just a couple of hours south of here. And this little map here, this is Geraldine. And 10 years ago, this was really much more impressive technology than what it is now. But I didn't have to do anything there other than I configured the environment to allow Bing, and I enabled Bing Maps. I will save the record. And now, once I save the record, got something. I've saved the record, and that means that this ribbon up here, I've got a few more options. And as I mentioned earlier, the options we have in that ribbon will depend on our security role and what things have been configured in the environment. I'll come back to that in a moment. What I do, I'm just going to set some personalization settings. These are like user-specific settings. These are specific to me. Dataverse, by default, is a multi-region, multilingual platform. And so I need to tell Dataverse what my time zone, etc. is. So I'm setting it to be Auckland, New Zealand time zone. I'm going to say I want English, New Zealand English, so my currencies will display correctly. While I'm at it, I'm also going to add an email signature. I'm going to set this as my default signature. So what this means is that when I send emails from within the model-driven app, it's going to put my default signature in. You can do lots of pretty things with it, but for time's sake, I'm just a basic signature. Okay. I'm going to say okay. There's other things in there, but mainly what I wanted to focus on was making sure that the dates were in my format and the regional formatting was correct. Okay, so I have created an account. I'm going to now create another account. And just because I forgot that I just created my own account, or I didn't check whether or not I already exist, duplicate detection, straight out of the box. I didn't even have to configure anything. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want two records that have got the same value. So I'll go back. I'm going to discard my changes. I am going to create another record though, and this time I'm going to create one for Rich. who happens to have the same title as me, which makes it really easy to. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I can't talk and think at the same time. I can't talk to it and think at the same time. So there's going to be times of there's going to be some silent pauses in the. Right. So Rich works at Brighter Days. So I've just created an account for him, and I'm going to set his. And this is his Brighter Days email account, which you've probably seen on the meetups. Saving that record. Okay, so what I want to briefly go through now is some of these things we can do up the top here on this ribbon for this particular record. Usual things like save and close, new, deactivate. Every record that we create in Dataverse has a state. It is either active or inactive. Every single record that we create. So if I deactivate a record, that sets its state to inactive, and it means it can't be edited. The next, another thing we can do is assign. Within Dataverse, there are security. Dataverse has a very comprehensive security system. Security. The word escapes me. I'm using all of the out-of-the-box roles, but the owner of a record, when you create a record, the person who creates the record by default is the owner of the record. The owner of the record determines who else has access to that record. Okay, so the owner of the record and security roles combined determine who have access to the record. So we have this helpful button here. Oh, this lets me assign it to someone else, which would mean assigning someone else as the owner. This button here, check access. Check access allows us to see who else has access to this record. Because while in an empty Dataverse environment with just one user, which is me, it's easy. I'm the only one that has access. But if we imagine in a large organization where with different teams of users with different levels of access, it's really helpful to be able to jump in and see who has actually access to this record. Do I need to give access to someone else? I can delete. If there are business process flows configured, then we would see them here. Out of the box, I have the ability to run some flows. There's only one flow out of the box, and it's something about security. But if you're familiar with SharePoint, this is similar to for the selected file. In SharePoint, we have a trigger for the selected file. In Dataverse, we have a trigger for the selected record. This means we can create flows, and then users will be able to go to the flow menu and run a flow for this record. Word templates, I'm coming back to soon. Run report, I'm coming back. I won't be coming back to that because there's no reports out of the box. Full context. There might be some others, but I don't know about them. Okay, what I'd like to come back to is this connect button. Dataverse allows us to record connections or relationships between records. Now, I'm not talking about like in our database where we have, if we've got an ERD diagram, an entity relationship diagram that determines the technical relationships between tables. I'm talking about personal or real life relationships between two objects. So, for example, later in the session, if I get a chance to talk about me, you'll discover that I work part-time with Rich at Brighter Days. Okay, I contract with Rich at Brighter Days. So Rich and I are colleagues. We have a real-world connection, a real-world relationship. So I'm now defining a relationship between myself and Rich, whose record I'm on, as I'm going to create a new connection role. Should have started that. Okay, I've got to add myself in a minute. So I'm going to say colleague, okay. I'm creating a role to indicate that two people are colleagues. Save and close. Now I'm going to add repeatedly again. Is this role? Okay, so save and close. I've added a connection. I'm just now going to show you that connection. If on the form we haven't got all of the different related information, we can go to related and say connections. So if someone else came into Rich's records, they'll be able to look at the connections tab and see, oh, Rich is a colleague of Sarah. Okay, so out of the box, I created that connection role, but out of the box, we do actually have a list of connections roles already configured, but we can configure connections. So another example might be parent, child. So if you're working with a softball team, for example, and you're coaching a school kids softball team, and you've got your players and their parents. Another example is manager. If you're so-and-so is the manager of so-and-so or is managed by. Okay, so these connections, I haven't shown it, but these connections have two sides. You can define different words on each side of the connection, parent, child, and then I'm going to move on from there. Just remind myself industry right connections. Okay. Now I am going to jump to accounts. I've already created a couple of accounts. You may have noticed that while I was creating my record and Rich's record, I created our account record. I only entered our name, the company name. What I actually want to do is I'm going to fill in, there's a whole lot of fields that we get out of the box. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just showing a couple of them. I'm going to set the industry that we work in. Say it's business services. Say. What I did just then is I bulk edited. I edited 2 records at once. And I did that out of the box. For interest's sake, I'm going to add another one, and I see that we have Stratus Technology Park here as well, and their industry is just going to be something random. And close. Refresh that. Out of the box, it's not particularly interesting, but we have the ability to create charts. So in model-driven apps, I haven't explained it yet, but this, what we're looking at here is a view. If I change this, I can change the view. And this is, if you're used to working with SharePoint, this is very similar to SharePoint, okay? When we have a library or a list and we have, we can create lots of different views that filter the data in particular ways and have different columns. It's the same thing with Dataverse. So I can edit the columns, for example, and I will put in that industry one that I just. So I've added the industry. I've got the primary contact in there, the primary contacts. I might also, I'm going to add another column because see this related tab? I can pick up, in my view, I can pick up columns from any tables that are one step away from me in the ERD, in the relationship. Primary contacts, so for example, first name, just to show you that we can bring in fields. Okay, out of the box, it's not particularly interesting in this particular case, but we have these charts. And usually as part of a Dataverse implementation, we'll configure particular charts for users. We have in here accounts by owner. It's not very interesting. I'm the only one that's created these accounts, so they're all mine. But if I go back to accounts by industry, these charts work, these charts represent what we're displaying in our view. So if I filter this, if I filter the view, the chart gets updated automatically. Oops. STP, so yeah, that'll do, even if it's not saved. Okay, so one of the things I configured in the environment was auditing. And I turned on auditing for the account table. So we turn it on at the environment level, and then whichever tables we want, we can turn on auditing for the table. We then can get more granular and say which fields we want to audit. Because really we don't want to audit every single field, although businesses often say, yep, we want to audit everything. We need to stay within our audits. Okay, so out of the box, we can see the audit history of changes, creations, and updates to the record over time. Jump back to email. Right. Earlier, when I was doing my personalization settings, I created an email signature. Now I'm going to create an email template. Out of the box, we get a handful of things. Most of them are related to system jobs, notifications that get sent out after when system jobs fail or are completed. I'm going to create one. When we create an email template, it's either an organization, which means other people can use it, or it's just for ourselves. This is going to be an email template that's going to be relevant to the contact report. So this is going to be very similar to what we may have done in Word, create a Word template with mail merge fields. So we can insert dynamic text. So for example, when we insert dynamic text, can't jump in this, I have to go all the way down to F, first name. When we insert dynamic text, we are inserting the text, and if that field isn't populated for this record, then we have this default text, which is just what it will say if that field isn't populated. Okay, so I'm just going to, this is a very boring, very boring email template. But the idea that I hope you're getting is that we have, we can, by formatting, we can pick up fields from the records. We can attach a file. So insert bingo, and that will do for now. I'm going to save and close that. And I'm going to go back to my contact record. And have you got your phone? Rich, can you receive an email?
Okay.
Okay. So one of the great things about Dataverse is this sort of box here called the timeline. And usually I put this perhaps on a tab on its own so that there's more room for people to interact with it. This timeline allows us to track a history of our interactions with a person or an account or some other custom object over time. Okay, so the type of things I can create out of the box, I didn't have to do anything here. I can create an appointment. So perhaps this was this site visit. I went and visited this person, or this person came and visited us. It's a meeting that we'd like to have. An email, a phone call. Perhaps this is a phone call that I want to make in a week's time, or it's a phone call I received yesterday. Tasks, portal, these two aren't relevant to my demonstration. Perhaps they might be for later. We can also just save a note. What I'm going to do is create an email. I'm going to insert a template. And that template is the one that I've just created. So you'll see that the two's already been populated because I'm sending it to Rich. The subject, body, and the attachment all came from that template.
I'm now going to see them.
Oh.
I don't usually get that message. Maybe it's because my wrong data, my wrong hotspot.
Now, what you can see there is this is the email that I sent. So you can imagine that over time, as we interact with this person over time, we're going to have quite a history there. We're going to build up quite a history of the relationship with this person. So while we wait for a response.
Wait for the email.
I'll talk about something else for a while.
Just came through.
Since
Just want me to reply back?
reply back, please. You'll see in my email, this is the outlook of the user I'm logged in as. And in my sent emails, you'll see ones that I have been sending. You'll also see that I sent one this morning to Rich at 10:55. Awesome. I have received an email from Rich. That's great. Let's go back and see if we've got anything here. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Out of the box. Email tracking. I did hardly anything, right? It takes me a few minutes to set up the environment. So that's cool. Now I'm going to jump back in and I'm running out of time. So I'm going to quickly show you some of the other things we can do. Up here, it's along the very same lines as we've got word templates. So just like we have email templates, we can have word templates. Now I'm creating it from here, and I'm going to upload it from here, which means it's just available for me. There's another screen I can go into where I can make this available to the whole organization. But for demonstration purposes, so you can probably guess what I'm going to do here. Industry, because those are the only fields I filled in industry. And just, I will insert logo because, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah. So we obviously have a plain Word document. I'm going to go to the Developer tab, which by default might not be enabled for you, but you just enable it in the options. I'm going to go XML mapping. Down here, I'm going to go down to the URNs, starts with URN, and oh my goodness, look at all those fields. So, what's it called? Name, account name, in name. I'm going to right click on there. I'm going to go insert content control and do plain text. You can only actually use plain text and image, I think. Industry code. Do that, plain text. Right. So now I'm going to save that. And now I'm going to go back to my Word templates. It's a pretty small screen. I should have made a bit late now, but I should have made it bigger for you. Okay, so I'm uploading that. I just downloaded a file. I'm uploading the same file, and it's being saved as a template. I'm not going to view the template, but what I am going to do is for this record, how about I generate that template? There you go. Okay, so that's the template. Now, What's the time, Jeff? What time do I need to stop?
You have 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes, okay.
Tell us. Jess,
So there's a, I'm gonna go back here. So I was talking about the data tables, email templates, views. We've done a Word template. I haven't shown SharePoint integration, so let's do that. So I configured SharePoint integration, which means that I've got a SharePoint site and I've got a database environment, and they are aware of each other, or actually the database environment is aware of the SharePoint site. So if I go open location, so this is a SharePoint site I set up for the demonstration. We have a library called account, and that is created through the environment configuration that I mentioned. I did the SharePoint integration. And we get a folder, so we get in that library, we get a folder for every account we create. What happens behind the scenes is it doesn't actually get created by default until a user actually views the documents grid. So for now, what I'll do is I'm just going to go into the documents grid for each of these accounts, just to trigger the creation of that folder. Now I'll go back to the library level, and you'll see there's a folder for each of those accounts that I've created. Which means that if I wrong way. Upload, sorry, so don't try it that way. Upload the document. I can see it in my model-driven app, and if that was Patil software, I can see it in SharePoint. So Dataverse is aware of SharePoint. Excel, I haven't shown it, but when we're looking at lists, we have the option here to export to Excel. We can export a static worksheet, so it'll export either the columns in our view, but we can also configure it to add other columns. We can also export a dynamic worksheet. So what that means is in a week's time, I can open that dynamic worksheet, hit refresh all, and it will bring in the latest version of the data. Same, we can do it with a pivot table. We can have a pivot table that's connected to our view in an Excel spreadsheet, open the Excel spreadsheet and refresh the view. Visualize, so we can create Power BI visualizations based on views. We do. Let me see. Search functionality. Out of the box, we have Dataverse search at the top here in this top one, which we search for. It'll search for records that contain that in a number of different columns, which can be configured. And then over here, we have the quick find, which is searching within this view. And when we're searching within the view, it just starts with search. And we can configure which columns it searches on. Audit, we saw the audit, we saw the views. We didn't go into the views too much, but we can create our own, we can share them, similar to what you can do in SharePoint.